Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all.
Experiment Nation, this message is for you if you are a short-term rental host. Pay attention closely, because if you recall, we had an individual by the name of Mark Simpson step into our lab and tell us the importance of building a short-term rental business where your clients and future guests are booking with you directly, not solely depending on OTAs such as Airbnb, VRBO, Expedia.com, the list goes on and on. And his reasoning behind it is that you want to leverage these OTAs and not be solely dependent on them so that you can actually build your business that you are in control of. Extremely important for you to do this, for you to be in control of your business and grow and scale it properly. Now, I did read the book from beginning to end, and the announcement is that he has launched a book called the Book Direct Playbook, which launches this February 2022. You want to make sure you get your hands on this book, because I certainly did from beginning to end, and I got more than just about OTA. He gave the foundation of true marketing, which is a specialty that he does because he is the founder of Boostly, who has helped numerous hosts over and over build very credible websites that allow the guests to book with you directly. Now, I want to highlight something. It's very important that you understand that Mark is not saying to not use OTAs. He's saying to leverage them to then be in control to build your own business. And he actually gives a very key gold template on how to actually create an incentive for your hosts or your guests, I should say, to stay with you as a host by booking with you directly. There is a strategic way to do this, and he does cover this in his book. You want to make sure that you get his book at the link below. You see right here, boostly.co.uk/book. In this book, it will give you the foundations, marketing foundations, a key guide to guide, and at the same time, every chapter has the instructions sections that gives you guidelines on what the next call to action, what the next step is. You need to refer to it the exact same way you would refer to any book you have in the lab as a practitioner who's going to take action to take control of your short-term rental business. Again, that is boostly.co.uk/book. That's boostly.co.uk/book. Make sure you get your hands on this book. You will not be disappointed.
Real Estate Experiment, what is happening, y'all? Today I have the pleasure of having Phil Capron, right? I said it with a little bit of a touch because we were talking about that. Whether you go English or French, Phil Capron here with me. I'm very excited to have you. This is a long time in the making, rightfully so. We are here in 2022. Without further ado, what's going on, man? How you doing, Phil?
What's up, man? Yeah, we were joking about that before we hopped on, of how many times I've rescheduled. So you're a gentleman for actually having me on after the craziness that was 2021. So glad to be here.
We had to make it happen. Listen, so let's put some things into context here, because we talk a lot about, I like finding out who the person is behind the business, because I believe we're a reflection, our business is a reflection of who we are. And I usually say that here in the lab, but Phil, I think you're really hitting the nail on the head on this one, because you became not only a product of your environment, you built something special based on what you had gone through. And so I want to introduce you to what you've really created and what you've actually gone through as a practitioner in the lab, as we call it. And that is obviously you being the founder of Mission First Capital, you writing a book serving veterans, and you creating a fund to serve veterans, and you being one yourself, having gone out in the field and then coming back out to your neighborhood, to your community, and having people who look like you, who come from your background, from your expertise, serving to then serving them, which I love, because it comes full circle. And I always say I love someone who not only talks the talk, but also walks the walk. So, I mean, with that said, I want to just take a step back to, I think it's interesting how we actually identify ourselves as, okay, I'm a real estate investor, I'm a operator, I'm that. To you, if I meet you across the street, or if we're, flying together, no pun intended there, because we'll talk about those, missions that you've had. But, how do you introduce yourself these days now? That that you're in this very, very niche, and you've done so much yourself as well. How do you introduce yourself when I meet you?
First off, thank you so much for the. You're too generous with your introduction, but I appreciate the kind words for sure. Um, so that's tough. That's it's a great question because it's a tough question. If you met me on the street and we got to talking, I'm just really at my core a pretty regular guy, which is what I guess attracted me to create Mission First Capital. I'm a regular guy who's attracted at times to doing some pretty irregular things, and over the course of my adult life, definitely taken some twists and turns that maybe others wouldn't have selected. But I'm of the opinion that we only get one go round at this that we know of, so you might as well take every opportunity every day and do what you want to do. Don't live someone else's life. And when you find something that works, don't keep it a secret. And try to have my friend Rod Cleef likes to say, one hand up to better yourself, one hand down to help the next guy. And I just think that that's such a wise way to put it. And so that's me in a nutshell, a regular guy that likes to do some kind of wild stuff from time to time. And depending on sort of where the conversation goes will depend on the disclosure of what kind of wild stuff, whether it's, touring around in a rock band while in college, or playing poker professionally, or being in the special ops in the Navy, or, you know what I mean? Like, it can go a few different routes depending on kind of who I'm talking to and, what they're into. And, I like to think of myself as sort of a jack of all trades, master of none. Though that, as I'm getting a little bit older here, I'm turning 38 next month. That's changing. I found what I believe is my life's work here in the real estate space, and particularly with Mission First Capital.
Very, very good. So it's so humble. Obviously, with all that, you don't talk about, hey, this is what I do, this is what I own, this is, who I'm helping, which is obviously very, very humbling to hear. Let's talk about the special ops for a second, and I'm going to fast forward there because I think, that's I think people will really resonate when they're tuning into this episode of, okay, this is a special ops guy. Interesting. That's kind of, I can kind of connect with that. Talk about that. I want to talk about that transition that you made when you first got your license, when you started helping, peers in your. And let me ask you actually. So while we're on this topic, I want to make sure that I'm saying it correctly. There's obviously veterans, and I feel like that's a big umbrella. You being special ops. What do you, just so we're on the same page, and to give some context within the industry, when you see, veteran, that is often used in real estate as a VA loan, etc., veterans, etc. And there's lots of veterans. Do you see, what is the definition of a veteran to use, just so we can, understand kind of your background? Because I think there's a lot, there's military, there's Navy SEALs, there's, a lot of sectors. And I don't think sometimes we have the opportunity to ask someone who's actually there, how they even feel about, that pool of experts who end up actually doing a lot of serving for us.
Gotcha. Yeah. So to me, a veteran is somebody, and there's about 19 million of us, give or take, a couple million on active duty, and depending on which number you want to use, around 19, that have worn the flag, that at one point in time signed a check to the U.S. government for an amount up to and including one's own life. And over the last 20 years, a lot of people actually, their checks were cashed, unfortunately. And, the wars that we're finally breaking away from here. So to me, very simply, that's what a veteran is. It's somebody that at a certain point in their life said, there's something bigger than me that I'm going to contribute to. And it's a love of country. It's a love of freedom. It's a desire at its core to do some good in the world. So if you wanted to break it down to its core essence, that's what it means to me. And everyone's service experience is different. Mine was, for being honest, that's why we're here, pretty lackluster. I signed up to go and what I thought was, do a good job and like make a change and fight the good fight and all that. And, my name actually wasn't called. I never even got to do a deployment with my unit, despite, training for years and very, tough scenarios and with the people that you mentioned, the Navy SEALs, Army Green Berets, the best of the best of the best, but actually never got to go, quote, do anything. So, for a while that was a little hard for me, thinking, okay, I've devoted years of my life and blood, sweat, and tears to this, and I didn't, quote, do my job. But yeah, looking back, the fact that I was able to go and to contribute, even in a small way, to everything that the U.S. military is, and get out with all of my fingers, my toes. It's a blessing. So in the short term, I thought I had really missed out, but having friends that have really seen war and really been called upon to do some incredible things around the globe, it's okay that I wasn't, because now I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which is my work with Mission First Capital.
Okay, so I want to highlight a few things here, because this is actually really deep, and this goes back to one of the first episodes I launched this year around, the compounding effect of experiments. And I think it's such a good point that you make, because sometimes we're in the trenches or in the lab, as I call it. We're doing all these experiments, and we don't necessarily think we're having that, that straight one-to-one impact that we're expecting, because you're kind of building this foundation or deep roots per se within your lab. And sometimes we actually don't even allow those experiments to flourish, right? And in your case, the reason I'm highlighting this is because I truly believe that you going out there in the discipline, and you being a part of the community, and being committed to it, the preparation, that in itself is contribution. And I think sometimes we lose sight of, we think, okay, this is where we need to go, but really out of that comes a byproduct. And your byproduct was actually being able to then come out to do what you really wanted to do, which I want to highlight and get right into, because I think it's important now that you are part of this community of those who serve, and you understand some of the gaps that are there, and therefore you're able to solve a problem. So why don't you kind of highlight that for us, because I think it's important for you to understand. I think one of the things you do a really good job of when we were talking about marketing, as soon as I come on your site, you make it very clear at, I love how you say you can start your investment journey alongside other military members and veterans just like you. And it's a very direct message. But can you talk about the gap that you're covering? Because I really want the listeners to understand as to, why you even created Mission First Capital. Why is it important that your company is there? And again, I know you're a very humble guy, but I really want you to address the pain point that you're serving within the marketplace.
It's a perfect segue. Thank you. So, this has been 10 years in the making, and, every experience is a blessing. It's just sometimes it takes a little while to see it. So when I separated from the military in 2012, I didn't have a job, I didn't have income, I didn't, have a plan or anything. And I just knew that when I bought my first house using the VA loan, which I wrote a book on that you mentioned, I thought, okay, there might be something to this real estate thing. So I thought that was being a real estate agent. So I took a real estate license course. I got out and immediately started helping some people from my old unit and other military units buy and sell property in coastal Virginia. And the pain point that you mentioned was when I saw people getting awful advice, buying houses they shouldn't, buying bad houses, going into foreclosure, sending the keys back to the bank, divorce, alcoholism, homelessness, you name it. I've seen all of it within the military community, specifically within the real estate space. And so that was sort of the impetus for writing Your VA Loan and How It Can Make You a Millionaire, because that's my journey. It started with one house that I bought while I was in the Navy, turned into 500 plus units over the subsequent decade, and a lot of real estate brokerage transactions, a lot of flips, some single family rentals, and then finally we figured it out and got into the commercial space, particularly apartment buildings. So helping people with their first purchase, that was a big thing for me, hence the real estate brokerage, hence the book, right? And I think that's a fantastic first step. If you're a veteran, if you haven't used your VA loan, you're making a mistake. You can check out our website, you can go to Amazon and pick up a book. All the proceeds go to the Navy SEAL Foundation. So I'm getting ready to write that check for 2021, and hopefully it's a decent one for the royalties. 2022, I'm hoping it'll be, a little better. So help us out there. But as it pertains to Mission First Capital, what I figured out is buying a house, that's going to drastically change your trajectory from when you're serving to when you get out. If nothing else, real estate markets go up, down, sideways. With inflation being where it looks like it's heading, buying a house today, even if you think the price might be a little bit high, you're locking in your rent for the next 30 years. That's so powerful. But that's not going to be enough. When you separate from military service, you're still going to have to go get whatever the next job is that you can get. And it bugs me that a lot of my veteran brothers and sisters don't have great options. So Mission First Capital was founded, a couple years after, getting into the commercial space myself, making good money, racking up a bunch of units, blah, blah, blah. It bugged me that I wasn't able to include most of my teammates, most of my military colleagues in my offerings. And you know why? It's because they're not accredited investors. They're not millionaires. They don't make $200K a year. So I said, there must be some way in which I can include them. They have access to, stock market stuff. They have access to a thrift savings plan with the military, and that's all fine and well. But why shouldn't they be able to invest like the rich invest? So Mission First Capital created a Regulation A+ fund that allows us to take just about anyone, under our wing, and for them to co-invest alongside us and other military veterans in the projects that we're doing. So did I answer your question? I was a little bit meandering.
No, of course you did. So I want to touch on a few things though, because I want to, the reason why we have this show is to also, highlight, areas, your blind spots per se. And so, if someone, or even, and I want to really cater to this audience, right? If it's someone who is out there, who's, a veteran who's listening, you said a keyword, you said, they're getting bad advice. And I know you've been on the two ends, right? You've been, on the license side, and now you're an operator, and now you've been one yourself. So what kind of bad advice can I be looking out for if I'm going into a field? And by the way, I'm a licensed as well in real estate, and I've never done a VA loan. And so this is actually an area where I could even get a lot of insights as well. Like what should we know? What bad advice is being put out there, and what should we stay away from? Maybe it's common knowledge. I know I put in 3 into 1 here, but I know you're the man who can handle it.
Yeah, sure thing. So I'll try to break it down into some very easy bullet points. The first is, not everyone's ready to buy a house, because home ownership is a responsibility. Just because you can buy a house with 0 down using a VA loan doesn't mean that you should have $500 in the bank. That's actually a really, really bad idea, because storms happen, roofs have shingles blow off, HVAC units go out. You have to be ready for that kind of thing. So that's mistake number 1, is not having a solid financial footing. You don't have to be super rich. You don't have to put down 20%. That's a great thing about the VA loan, but you do have to have your financial house in order. So that's suggestion number 1. Number 2 is, don't go for the dream house at 20 years old, 25 years old, maybe even 30 years old. You want to go for something that is in the path of progress and will be, massively rentable or sellable when you leave. So you want to avoid kind of these outliers, and you generally want to avoid new construction in flip homes, because, especially if you've have military orders that change, a year or 2 after you buy the house, guess what? You paid top dollar and then some for the thing, unless we're in the type of market that we are right now, where everything's just on a tear and it seems to be divorced from reality. If you're in a more traditional real estate market of a couple percent a year in appreciation or inflation, whichever way you want to look at it, you're not going to be able to eclipse the 10%, give or take, that it's going to cost to sell the home. So either you write a check to sell the home, which is never fun, or you're stuck, and then maybe you're not able to get a rent that covers the mortgage and the expenses because you didn't do that work on the front end. So lastly, it kind of ties in with number 2, is you want to make sure that when you buy something, it would rent today, the day you buy it, for, you pick a metric, call it $200-300 more than your mortgage payment. That allows you a little fudge factor for a property manager, a professional property manager, and to sock away a little bit of money every month for those expenses that ultimately will happen as a part of home ownership.
Love that tactical advice, and I appreciate you actually giving a a baseline for that last one. I'm curious for the first one, the reserves. What's a good ratio that we say? Again, there's no hard rule here, but just to kind of understand, if I'm listening, I'm thinking like, well, am I over leveraging here? I heard what Phil said, but am I pushing the boundaries? What's a rule of thumb that you think is a good measuring stick for someone to have their reserves as it relates to the investment they're looking at?
I like 6 to 9 months.
Being able to cover the mortgage, that is, right?
Correct.
Excellent. I love that.
So that way, if you were called away on a deployment or a change of station, and you did your homework and you said it's going to rent for a couple $100 more, I'm comfortable with this. It's not going to be a drain on me once I leave. It can continue to be an asset that someone else pays down my principal every month. Ideally, the market continues to go up a little bit every month. I revisit this in 5 or 10 years, and I have a nice little equity position. So, if you've done that, you're in good shape. But, it also takes a little bit of time to move out and get a tenant. It's the day you move out, you don't have a renter in necessarily.
Sure.
So a couple of months just for that transaction and for a realtor fee potentially to place the tenant. It's common sense that's not common. And I see people getting into a lot of trouble when just these very normal life sort of circumstances come at them.
Got it. So I appreciate that, because there's tactical advice, there's practical advice that someone can take. Now, let's say someone says, you know what, I like this Phil guy, I like this Mission First Capital thing. Forget it. You're there to give an option and invest with others. Tell us how that looks like, because I think we may have heard syndication, etc. But now you're talking about some Reg A, Tier 2, which folks might not be familiar with. And I think it's important for them to understand really what that means.
Gotcha. Yeah. So a lot of these people would not have even heard about a syndication if you're sort of our marketing avatar, like we were speaking of earlier, because the option's never been made available to them. So what this is it's a suite of properties across multiple, metros with multiple military veteran operators in multiple asset classes. So right now under contract, we have a couple small apartment buildings in coastal Virginia. That's my wheelhouse. That's what I do. So those are my deals. We're looking strongly at a storage deal in New York with an Army veteran. We're looking at an apartment deal in the Southeast with a Marine Corps veteran. And, we're working on a couple of deals in the Midwest with an Air Force veteran. So we're diversified across geography. We're diversified across a couple different asset classes, but the game of real estate is the same. We're investing with operators that know what they're doing, that are military veterans, in properties that we're able to add value by working hard and working smart. And, it's our objective to, return our investor partners a fair return for partnering with us on these deals. And our social media channels and our investor emails will have all sorts of fun stuff about each project as comes down the assembly line, so to speak.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you highlighting that, because I think I definitely want to be clear on behalf of having an expert like you in the lab talk about a fund. This is different than just having a single property. This is having actually multiple property where you take the investment, you kind of diversify across multiple properties. Am I correct?
That's right. So everyone is working to get the investors in Mission First Capital their preferred return, is what it's called. Yeah. We're all working to that end.
That's so fascinating. So, and I like how you said you have operators who are, because you said, and I was going to ask you this, right? You said 100%, VA, do you say VA controlled and owned, right? 100%, is that how you say it?
So I say, it's 100% owned and operated, right? Mission First Capital. that's me. I have employees that are veterans, employees that are military family members, because they're definitely on our team, so to speak.
Right.
But as far as where we're deploying our capital, we'll only go with sponsors that are military veterans. That makes us a little bit different.
Wow, that's really unique. And I see that the minimum investment here is 5,000. Is that accurate? Just for our listeners.
That's correct. So
Wow.
for depending on where you are, that could seem like a ridiculous amount of money, or it could seem like, wow, that's really very modest. And it just depends. As we kind of talked about earlier, the minimums for other deals that we've done that are standard syndications, usually accredited only, are usually 50,000 for the minimum, sometimes 100. So I knew that there needed to be an option that was significant, right? Because there's crowdfunding platforms and you can invest like $500, but what does that do for you over 5 years, right? Obviously it's better than nothing. But what we're trying to educate people into is that, if you want tomorrow to be better than today, you have to make some moves, to that end. And if you're putting away $5,000 or $10,000 a year with Mission First Capital, and then take it to the end of the fund, get one payout, the next year, if you invest again, the next payout, that could actually be sort of a bridge between the end of a military service and the next true career. One of the hardest things for me was getting out and I had no income. And I was thinking it would have been cool if in 2012 when I got out, I'd invested $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000 in something like Mission First, and made it worth more. And then I was receiving that. It would have gone a long way towards paying my bills. It would have really reduced my stress, so on and so forth. So that's sort of the machine that we're building.
That's awesome. So are you also, it sounds like, I'm curious, are you also doing some syndications, outside of the Reg A tier or tier 2,
Nope.
or you're just strictly
Nope.
doing
I'm selling everything, because everything that I currently have is going to take a little bit of bandwidth away from Mission First. So
burning the ship.
Pretty much.
I love that. That's really interesting. So let me ask you, what's next for Mission First Capital? Like, where do you envision this thing? Like, what is the goal? Because I like it when you come in a lot and you say, I remember 2022, Phil had mentioned this and he's actually doing it as part of a successful experimenter, right? What is the mission for you? I think I know your mission, but what is the end goal? Where are we going?
So in the next 10 years, we need to have 100,000 military investors that are educating themselves and bettering their future through Mission First Capital, or I will consider it a failure. So I'm not really concerned with, billion in assets under management, but obviously I'd like to get there. I'm not really concerned with, particular annual income for myself or net worth or anything like that. All those things will come. What's important to me is helping as many people that are willing to listen invest in themselves. Mission First isn't a retirement plan. It's not going to make you, quote, rich, but by investing with us and riding shotgun and seeing these different deals, these different operators, not only will it inspire all of our investors, but they'll learn a little bit more. Maybe they take the next step and want to invest in things themselves once they've, accrued a nice little nest egg. And, that's sort of what we're here for. We're here to help people create a nest egg that's, they're able to do whatever they want with. It could be the dream vacation, the wedding, the car, whatever. We're here to sort of bridge that gap. But also the hope is that it's the first domino to fall in a long chain that is a path towards financial literacy and financial independence. Is working for the government for any length of time. When you're about to go be a free person again, it's pretty exciting, but it can also be terrifying because of the financial implications.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a steady paycheck anymore. Your housing and your food, you don't get a stipend for those, and you're going to have to figure it out. So if we could just be the first domino for 100,000 military members and their families, that'll ripple out to their communities and be an outsized impact. And I'd be very proud of that. If in 10 years I could say, hey, Ruben, we did it. 100,000th investor, got him.
Love that. If I'm a veteran that's listening right now and I haven't even, I don't own an asset right now, and I'm listening to this, what do you think is the first call to action? Should I get into a VA loan myself? Should I start with a fund? Like, what do you think comes first, from even just an awareness and education? I'd be curious to hear what you have to say to that.
So my lawyer's favorite answer is it depends. There's some geographies that it just might not be possible to buy based on the criteria that I outline in my book. And if you're in a super high priced area and you're a relatively junior service member and your income doesn't justify, biting off that level of property, because, if something were to happen, you would not be able to make the payments. Don't. Save your money, invest in your TSP, take a look at Mission First Capital, come learn from us, check out the deals we're doing, get inspired by the other veterans that are doing real estate at a really high level, and invite you to invest with us, an amount that makes sense. You come back from a deployment, often people have $10, $20, $50,000 that they've saved up from not spending and from bonuses while they're over there. Give us a try for 5 or 10,000, and that could be the best option for you. But if you're in an area that you can afford, you're in an area that you think you're going to be in for a little while, definitely buy a home for yourself, for your family. And if you don't have a family yet, buy a home and rent it out to your buddies. That's even better. Let them pay your mortgage, then go buy another one, then invest in Mission First Capital, then buy another one. The path is not the same for everyone. What I'm trying to do is just put out a few viable tools that people can use.
I like that. Very nice. Look, I want to get into the keeping it real segment, and I think you're very qualified to answer these. And so I'll start with what do you think is the biggest misconception that you have when you tell people, or I want to be specific, when you tell veterans about this fund that you have? Like, what's the biggest misconception that you often hear, having been around for a while?
Boy, that's a tough one. I think the first one is the problem I'm trying to combat is that's only for rich people. It's not for me. I'm just going to save money in a savings account. Please don't do that. Please do anything but that. Yeah. We hope that you'll give us a look, but please don't just keep all your money in a savings account. With inflation where it's going, that's about the worst thing you could do.
For sure. What's the best advice that you've ever received? While I think you've had a very interesting journey. What's the best advice that you think you've ever received in your journey?
Boy, that's a great question and a super tough one. There's a couple. My first job was a pool lifeguard, pool that we went to in the summertime, and I thought that the manager was treating me unfairly. It was me and a couple other guys, and we got stuck with like toilet duty and like all just the worst jobs. And I came home and I talked to my dad about it, and he said, "Do you think that this manager is an unfair guy?" And I said, "Well, I don't really know. I don't really like what he's asking us to do." He said, "Well, do you think he's done that job?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm sure that he has." He said, "Well, that's why he's a good leader, because he is not going to ask you to do something that he hasn't done himself." And in this real estate journey, being boots on the ground with a lot of properties, you wear a lot of hats. I'm a plumber. I'm a wannabe electrician, a roofer. I'm hauling shingles up to the guys. I'm a wannabe property manager, appraiser. You just have to become a little bit dangerous in a lot of fields, or else you can have a blind spot and get taken advantage of. So that sort of ties in with this idea that you need to work to earn, or I'm sorry, work to learn before you work to earn. And for me, that's exactly how it went. I helped other investors with flipping, in the brokerage side of things. I learned, and then, I took it out for myself, and now I'm taking it one step further. And, yes, I'm still earning, and that's great, but I'm expanding, the reach so that other people can learn and earn alongside of us.
No, core rapid fire questions. I gotta drill through these because I know that you'll be able to offer lots of value here. What is one of your favorite books, you would say?
So the book that really started it for me was Gary Keller's Millionaire Real Estate Investor, the Blue Book. I just think that's so simply written, and you can go through it and like your mind just starts to go places.
Yeah.
Very simply, it's think $1 million, buy $1 million, earn $1 million, I think, and then receive $1 million is the top of the mountain. So, you need to be able to think about buying $1 million, then you need to actually buy $1 million, then you need to receive $1 million gross, and then you actually, you need to own $1 million in net worth, and then you actually one day receive $1 million net, which is pretty cool to like think about that journey. Yeah. And over the last decade, I'm not to receiving $1 million yet, but one of these days. So it's pretty cool. Absolutely. And I recommend it.
Love that. Best tool that helps you excel throughout the day?
Best tool?
Yeah. Application coffee? Could be in it. Oh, really? Straight to coffee. What'd you say is the habit for you that serves you every day?
A habit that serves me every day. Oh. So my girlfriend and I, we've been doing yoga almost every morning. Last year we had like a 100-day streak, and then kind of fell out of it for a little while. So, Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning.
Yeah. Oh, that's my guy.
The Miracle Morning, right, is fantastic. So, it's a simple read. Check that one out and just take what works for you and leave what doesn't. So maybe you're not doing the whole Miracle Morning, but even just the yoga, it's exercise and it's kind of a meditation thing. So, and kind of a silence thing. So you're knocking out a few of them. And I just find that I'm better prepared to face the day.
Yes, that's the savers. That's moment of silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, read, and scribe. You live by that.
He's got it, my man.
You already know.
I would be proud.
I would be proud. Listen, I'm curious about what you're going to answer here. Is one 300-unit apartment building or 3 apartments of 100 units? Which one do you go for?
That's shooter's choice. I would like the 3 100s.
Why?
Even though it's going to be a little bit more management intensive, because sometimes you want to, free up some liquidity so you can exit or you can refinance one. But if, you sort of have all your eggs in one basket, I get it. It's more institutional. It's probably valued at a lower cap rate. But you're there and you're sort of stuck there. So I'd choose the 300s because they're still of enough size and scale that you can get in there and turn the screws to the management and force some appreciation, do some really cool things. And maybe they're in different geographies as well. So, one's killing it, one's kind of hanging out, one's not doing so hot, so you can make some
Phil,
different choices.
I wouldn't expect anything different coming from a guy who operates a fund. So I think you're in this. You're synergistic with what you actually do. So I love that. Cash flow versus equity. Which one do you pick?
Cash flow. It's all about cash flow, right? I was just doing my PFS before we hopped on here for a refinance of 110 unit portfolio that we have. And it's great. We've got, maybe $4 million in equity in the project. I can't spend that, so one usually comes with the other, right? So return on investment is a great metric, but return on equity is another thing that people omit that it's important. Absolutely. Cash flow is nice, but if you've got a stupid amount of equity, if you could harvest some of that and then put it to work at a particular return, whether it's 6, 8, 10, 15%, whatever it is for you, it's something that's often overlooked.
Love it. All right, last one. If you could have one superpower with what you're currently doing in your ventures, what would that superpower be, Phil?
My superpower would be to allow other people to see the world as I see it. Because if they could, they would be, they'd be wrapped around the block for Mission First Capital.
So is it the power of convincing, perhaps?
Not really. I don't need
funny
to convince I don't need to convince anyone. It's just when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. And a challenge that we're having with Mission First is when you're young, when you're single, you're military, environment, it's about buying the next car, the Harley, or going to the bar, or what I mean? It's money, just blow it, right? But at some point it's going to end. And it's nice to have something set aside. So if they could see it the way that I see it, 10 years out of the military, they would take, 10,000 of the 50,000 they saved on deployment, and they'd put it with Mission First Capital. Because then when they do get out, say, oh, this is worth more now. This is cool. I've got cash. I can start a business. I can hang out for a few months and not lose my house or go crazy. It buys you options. So maybe that's an unorthodox answer, but
I like that.
That's what I would do.
I like that you elaborated on it. So I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Where is he going with this? In the lens of Phil. But listen, Phil, this was fantastic. I want to make sure that everyone who's listening goes and checks out missionfirstcapital.com. That's where they can discover a lot about what you're offering and again, the kind of mission that you're on. No pun intended there. But at the same time, your VA loan and how it can help make you a millionaire. That's your book that again that they can check out. Is that going to be on the website as well, or is that should it go?
Yeah, there's a link. You can actually get a free digital download. But if you're more of like a hands-on type of person, scoot on over to Amazon. If you just search your VA loan, it should pop up, or my name. It should pop up, and it's $10 and it goes to the Navy SEAL Foundation. So, would love to sell some paperbacks as well. But if you want it for free, just for your use or to email it over to a veteran in your life, hey, I'm cool with that. And I don't think I mentioned it through the entire episode. I created this for veterans, but there's other regular people out there. There's other people that don't make 200 grand a year and aren't millionaires. You're welcome. If you're a patriot and you love America and you support our military, and that's our shtick, I guess. That's who I'm intending to serve. But there's plenty of great people in my friend circle that they just have regular jobs. They work hard. They're cops, they're firefighters, they're teachers, they're lawyers. They don't fit the accredited box, and you're welcome at Mission First. It's not exclusionary. It's just that's the group that we're seeking to serve.
I'm glad you said that. I appreciate that. And guys, the same rules applies in this case. If you're listening to this, if you're driving, keep your hands on the wheel. We'll include everything in the show notes, or if you're flying the plane, who knows what your audience, Phil. But listen, this was great. I appreciate you stepping in the lab. And just like that, Phil, we are out.